Amalia, how are you
Hey,
today?
Shauna. I'm doing really well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Here in Germany, in
Oh,
Nuremberg. Have you ever been over here?
I've been in Frankfurt area and in Berlin as well, but that was some years ago. But yeah, Germany is beautiful and nice to be up there now because in my area of Denia, the Valencia region, it's quite hot, so being
I
a
know.
little bit north is great. But actually I'm calling from Asturias, from Oviedo in the north of Spain. I'm here for a couple of weeks dog sitting for my brother. And so we have escaped the heat for the time being for this week. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, guys, I'm so excited to have Amalia on here with us. Last time she actually called with her partner on there on the summit, which was a really interesting chat. And I'm super excited to have you again on summit number 3. So I would love for you guys to meet Amalia. Her last name is Maloney. And I hope I said that right. Is it Maloney?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So basically, Amalia is a storyteller and a certified travel consultant. She runs a really awesome blog. And our chat today is everything moving to Spain. We are super fans of the EU. So even if maybe Spain isn't your first primary destination, a lot of the things we're going to talk about today can be applicable to other EU countries, just because, we are going to go deep in a lot of different areas. So Amalia has firsthand knowledge of what it's like to move to Spain from the US and work remotely. So American moving to the EU, we've got you covered here, and why Spain is great for this and the new avenues for this being possible. So Spain's digital nomad visa and she also has lots of resources for planning such a move that's so far away, with trips also included throughout Spain and Europe. And so, yeah, we really want to go over like what the benefits are of living in Spain and Europe in general as an expat, and also what to consider when you're making your move. So Amalia, thanks so much for being here. And can you give us a little background on how you started living abroad and also where you normally live?
Yes. Well, once again, thank you so much, Shauna, for having me. And thank you, everybody, for being on this call. Most of all, is taking this as a step towards your living abroad dreams, because I can attest to the fact that I'm really glad that my husband and I did as well. We're very happy living in Europe and Spain in particular. So I usually live in Denia. It is a beautiful little beach town that is in the Valencia region. It's ideally in between Valencia City and Alicante. So you have those two international airports on either end. And, it's on the Mediterranean. I mean, we've been super happy to be there. And the quality of life has been very affordable as well as very healthy. The nature is beautiful. The cost of groceries and eating out, things of that nature that really support an enjoyable lifestyle, and also support a lifestyle if you're interested in having more of a work-life balance, is definitely not only supported and coming about in Denia, but we see it still for a lot of people, our friends and people who I consult with and plan travel for all throughout Spain, especially, and in various other parts of Europe too. So even though it's been some years that people have been really singing the praises of moving abroad to Europe in particular, I think that Spain in particular is still a really great country for that. And we've been happy to see that they're making more efforts to make that possible and encourage people to move here from other countries. So yeah.
I love this. And maybe to help us, those that are like, we're planning our move for 6 months, maybe 2 years in advance. How did you choose Spain? And this might help answer your question, Robin. I just saw it in the chat about like, why Spain? So could you kind of walk us through like how you ended up deciding on Spain?
Well, for me, my situation was definitely a personal connection. My grandfather, my abuelo on my mother's side, was from the north of Spain, the region of Asturias. And years ago, over like about 15 years ago now, my brothers and I had the opportunity of getting dual nationality through the Ley de la Memoria Histórica, the historic memory law. Now, we had to show a lot of documentation that my grandfather had been exiled during the Spanish Civil War, that's a big Pandora's box here in Spain, still to this day, that recent historic event. But the positive side is that there have been opportunities for people like me whose grandparents or parents had to flee from Spain to actually gain nationality. And through that process that we started in the US, we were able to get Spanish passports, and we actually are citizens. We have the nationality. So dual nationality. I know sometimes people have asked about the myth of whether or not you can keep your US nationality and have a second one. And with a lot of European countries, I believe all of them, I'm not sure, but particularly with Spain, you can have both nationalities. You can keep those, and you do not need to renounce your US citizenship. I'm living testament to that. I saw someone had that question. That's a common question. So it has been over 10 years now that I've had my Spanish passport. I still have my US one. We go back and forth. My brothers have it too. I have two younger brothers. So my reason for coming to Spain is very personal. And at the same time, I did spend some time first living in Italy and traveled around there. It wasn't too extended of a time. It was 3 months, the time I was allowed to at that time before I had dual nationality. And I considered Italy, but I ended up deciding on Spain because of that personal connection, and also just the feel, the energy and vibe. And really, it's going to come down to your own personal preference, but it's also, and this leads perfectly into something that has become very popular that people are coming to me for, and that is scouting trips. It's why I highly encourage people to, before you make that move abroad, try your best to do a scouting trip. It doesn't have to be the way that it's done. Yes, people can still spontaneously move, and you can fall in love with a place and decide. But to start the research beforehand, maybe even have a professional like myself help you to plan a trip specifically for scouting a country out. And so I would suggest, whether it's Spain or Italy or another country, anywhere in the world really, make a point to have a trip to go and see what it's like to live there. Meet with other expats there, especially meet with locals, and look for related professional resources for how you bring about the logistics of making that move possible. For Spain in particular, I think the quality of life is so good for the cost. And there are so many areas of Spain that are affordable to live in, but also have such a rich, authentic culture that you get to connect with locals and have a sense of the foreign community to connect with as well. It's also a very safe country too. Yes, of course, we still have our things. There's the politics, there's still crime, but in general, Spain is very safe. And for me, it's just a beautiful place to live. It's very diverse also. So those are the reasons why I would encourage people to consider Spain.
Yes, and Amalia, thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, in the intro, I actually didn't say that. So guys, by the
Oh,
way,
that's okay.
Amalia does like literally scouting trips. That's her specialty with her company Move to Traveling. So look, it's really important that you guys scout. You can't really understand what a place is like. I mean, Google Maps and Google Earth is great. And I love it because you can kind of see maybe what a city looks like, and, tap into, I love yoga, or I love meditation. Like, I want to check out the different centers and see if there's even a studio. That's great to do online. But like the actual, do you feel safe? What are the people like? What are the restaurants like? If you have,
Oh,
what I mean, is there healthcare near me? Where would I go? I have a spinal injury. That's the kind of stuff that you need to go see for yourself on. So I've just put actually your free gift, Amalia, in the chat, which is, if you guys are interested in scouting, schedule a 30-minute free call with Amalia. And I gave you guys the steps to do that. You just go to her contact page and submit a contact form with this code I gave you, and she will waive any fees associated with a call, so that you guys can kind of see what that can look like. But can you talk more about scouting trips and like what people need to have in mind when they're thinking of a place?
yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the biggest things I I think a scouting trip can help people identify is Spain might seem, I'm going to talk about Spain in general, but this can apply to other countries too. I witnessed it in Italy also when I went from north to south, back and forth, tons in the 3 months that I was there. The regions can be so diverse, from the food to even the language. And actually in Spain, each region's language and dialect is a very important thing for each region. And so a misconception is that moving to Spain, oh, you just go to any area and you're going to be fine. And a big thing I encourage people that might have kids and they might be interested in kids going to public schools is to be aware that a lot of regions now are really insisting on more and more of their public schools teaching most of the classes in that region's dialect. So it won't even be Castilian Spanish. It'll be like in Valencia region, it's Valenciano. It's their own language, and it's more similar to Catalan in Catalonia. And then, of course, in Catalonia, they're very passionate about being their own country, practically. Same for Basque Country. Even here in Asturias, where I am for a couple of weeks in the north, they have their own Asturian language. It's not as prominent in their society as it is in other regions. But I think that the first thing to keep in mind is that if you're able to, try to allow at least for 2 full weeks for a scouting trip so that you can choose 2 different places that you are strongly considering. It's okay if the trip has to be shorter because of your circumstances. What's great is I plan scouting trips for people that are absolutely personalized and customized. Everything I do is according to what time you have to work with, what your preferences are, what your traveling desires are, what your living abroad desires are, so taking all of that into account. But ideally, if you can have a couple of weeks to do at least a week in each place, some people I work with do have even a little bit longer, which can be great too. That is a wonderful way to be able to consider and see firsthand, okay, what is this area like? What is it like to drive around the Valencia region and see the highway signs and the road signs, not in Spanish, but in Valenciano? And, they have Spanish with them too, but the first thing you're going to see is Valencian, actually. And the town next to us in Denia, Javia, it's spelled 2 completely different ways in each language. Yeah, so when we first moved here and we first saw it, I was concerned that we were heading in the wrong direction because I didn't realize that Xavia was the name of the town in Valencian, but in Spanish it was spelled and called differently.
Wow.
So, that can be really great. The other really important thing about scouting trips is being able to be connected to a vetted resource, like the resources that I have, that I've spent years in cultivating these relationships with professionals. I highly recommend work with professionals. Have in your budget money set aside and find it worthwhile to invest into professional resources for legal help for residency process, which I have a great law firm that I work with, and I refer them out only because people I've worked with have worked with them and have attested to them being fantastic. It's and being able to meet with real estate agents, do a property tour if you're interested in that. Get an idea of what it's like to be in the apartments here and the houses, because, all of this can be quite different from the US. The air conditioning is different, right? And some places, don't have air conditioning still, like in the north of Spain, residences don't have air conditioning. So if you're going to visit and it's hot, stay in a hotel and hope that the air conditioning works well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, can we talk about this for a quick moment, Amalia? Because both of us have this experience. I lived in Barcelona for 5 years, as you know.
Mhm.
Be very careful, you should work with somebody who kind of understands this, because you could be all excited, sign a lease for an apartment, but the building is from a certain year and the way that it was made, and it's freezing in the winter. I made that mistake a couple times in Barcelona. Chose a place because it was super beautiful, and I got it in the summertime, but in the winter, my electricity bill was super high because I had the heater on the whole time. But like really knowing somebody like Amalia who's going to tell you, hey, this is a good place that you can move into so you're not freezing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The first winter we were in Denia, we were in this cute Spanish house that was beautiful, right front line on the beach. And their idea of insulation is non-existent. And these Spanish houses on the beach are usually meant for summer vacation, you know? And so we were cold, and it's a humid cold. And we were even further south than Barcelona, like where you were. And yet it's people think it's warm here all the time, but even on the Mediterranean and going down into Andalusia, my mom lives down near Sevilla, in another part of Spain, and in the winter it's a humid cold in a lot of areas, especially off the sea, and it gets quite cold. So yes, it's important to keep in mind what that means in regards to what kind of properties you're looking at and where you're going to choose to live, you know, and also to understand what it's like to rent long term versus buying, and to navigate that as well. It's really probably one of the most common things that I help people out with
Right.
is learning about that and being able to make a good informed choice about that, that makes the move so much more enjoyable once you do come over and you settle. So
Amazing.
yeah.
I love it. And we're getting some
Mhm.
questions. So like Lisa Ann asks, would love to hear scouting trip tips, especially finding how to meet people and network there. But it sounds like you've already done that work already. So that's kind of what's the benefit of working with you. But I think maybe Lisa's question is for somebody that is going on a scouting trip, it's already planned. I've seen in the chat, some people already have their 2 weeks, month scouting trips planned. Any
Mhm.
tips?
Yes, I would say, well, it's going to depend on the region. And so if you have a chance, still book a call with me, the free call that I'm offering here through the discount code. I love to meet new people, and I would love to be of any help through that free call that I'm gifting people who are attending this. Just reach out. And it's going to depend on the region. And that's the things I like to find out. What region are you considering? Where are you going? A lot of times, if you're on Facebook, there's a lot of great Facebook groups that can get specific, and try to find groups and forums that are specific to the area that you're looking into, and try and get as narrowed down onto the town you're looking at, that area. And the big thing is too, depending on your level of Spanish, like look into as well what kind of Spanish learning programs, and if there are any, my biggest tip would be try and see if there are any intercambio group events. That's what they call them, intercambio. Denia has these and they're wonderful. I know a lot of other towns in Spain do. And it's where local Spanish speakers meet up with foreigners who are living or even just visiting in an area who are English speakers. And they spend time together in a social setting, like at a restaurant, cafe, having a drink, having a tapa, and they all just come together and take turns speaking with each other. And you can be at different levels. I know that in Denia, these are free, they don't cost anything. It's also a great way to meet people who are local and who are foreigners. So you learn a lot from making those connections too. So I would look for intercambio groups where you're going. It's going to be a great resource.
Wow, amazing. I love that. And then somebody is asking here, hold on really quick. Can
Mhm.
somebody do a scouting trip? I mean, would you do a, Heather's asking, would you do a scouting trip with your two young kids, 3 and 6, or without?
Ooh, I would recommend, and I'll say right now, I don't have kids. I grew up with two younger brothers who are a lot younger than me, so I feel like I semi had kids. But I would do it with your kids. I really would, because you're going to want to see in an area, hey, what playgrounds are around? What is everyday life going to be like here? What are my kids going to think about? The sounds and the sights and the smells and the newness of all of this, and the energy and the vibe. I'm very big about the energy of a place and the energy that we give off. And so I would say, even though your children are very young, even at 3, I think that children are very intuitive and really sensitive to energy. So take your kids with you. That's my personal word of advice, and then like when you're going to go away, just you and your partner, maybe just have it be for that romantic getaway, when you do that as a break. But for a scouting trip, take the kids, So
Yeah, and then what better way to really see what it's going to be like than bring kids, right?
Yes. Yeah. Even like, is this town really hilly? Am I going to hate pushing the stroller around? Is it, am I going to be okay driving in this area with my kids in the backseat, or do I feel uncomfortable driving here? Things like that. So yeah.
So true. If anybody has any other questions, please drop them in the chat. Anything about Spain, scouting,
Mhm.
integration process. What was the integration process like for you? How was that? American.
Yeah. Well, I had spent some time in Spain before. My mother is a native Spanish speaker, being from the Dominican Republic, although she raised us in the US. I was born and raised in the US. I didn't learn Spanish fluently as a kid. I was kind of a naughty kid, but I had an intermediate level of Spanish, I would say, when I moved to Spain. So my integration process, that really helped. But the thing I wish we had done differently, integration wise, is I wish we had hired some professional help. I processed ourselves, my husband and I. We got married in Spain last year, but all the years leading up to that, we did domestic partnership in Spain. So he could get residency through me. And we did all that process ourselves. And each region has different laws, and we weren't expecting that. So doing it ourselves, it took probably 2 or 3 times longer. And, he was here longer than he should have been by a while. And so it was just added stress. And, eventually we did get some help, but really we just did it all ourselves. And the process can be a little frustrating in regards to the getting your residency card and things like that. So I would recommend to get professional help, but otherwise socially, the integration has been wonderful all throughout Spain. And I've spent months in different areas of Spain in the north and Extremadura, which is along the Portuguese border. I have encountered that the people are so welcoming and friendly. I mean, we've had little old couples pull us in off the street, and then when they know that we're visiting, and just see us walking around and invite us to a glass of wine or coffee, and people are so warm and friendly. The locals are great. They like that you make efforts to speak Spanish, but even if you don't, we've only encountered kindness and encouragement, even if for those who don't speak the language, for our friends who don't. And the foreigners, there's plenty of foreigners here too, where you aren't going to feel isolated. You're not going to feel, I mean, maybe depending on where you are, but you will have other people to relate to as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. And then Deb has a question. Can you suggest a tax lawyer? I know you have so many connections, and I'd love to know if you have a tax lawyer.
Yes. Absolutely. Actually, the law firm that I love to recommend, JLCA Lawyers, there in Madrid and Alicante, they actually have a US office in Miami as well. So they have a US number you can call. But I have information about them on our website, movetotraveling.com. And I love to refer people to them because they also have a fantastic tax lawyer and tax law firm that they refer people to. And whoever they work with, I truly trust, because I have a lot of travel clients, a lot of moving to Spain clients who I have worked with, who have worked with them and been very happy with them. So I'm definitely happy to share those resources. Just be in touch through my website or get on a call with me. And I can also directly send you that information, or you can find it on my website.
Amazing. And then we have a couple more questions, guys. If you have anything else, feel free to drop it in the chat. So let's talk about, hold on, I don't know if this is a question. Okay. So there was a tax question. I don't know if you saw that. Are you looking in the chat, Amalia?
Let me see. I can see them popping up.
What about comparing? Okay, this actually happened a couple times. Can you compare Spain versus Portugal do you know just from experience from like friends, what is that difference, would you say? Because I think a lot of people are deciding between the two.
Yeah. I have a lot of people asking me about Portugal, actually, and I've planned some trips for people in Portugal even for this summer, because I also do travel planning in general. So I'm always happy to be of help with that too. And and then my youngest brother just finished his master's, and he spent 4 months in Faro in the Algarve area in the south of Portugal. And hearing his experience was really interesting. He said that he found the people to not be quite as excited about the foreigners was his experience. Now he's in his late 20s. Maybe that has something to do with it. Take that with a grain of salt. And I have spent some time in Lisbon before, and in a very rural part of Portugal in a village called Monsaraz, which I would highly recommend visiting. It's right in the middle, though, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's a medieval village. And I would say the friendliest people I've ever met in Portugal have been in that village in Monsaraz. Really neat place. I think the rural areas are very, very friendly. Lisbon was beautiful and great to see, some very nice people. For me, Portugal has a little bit more of a gritty feel to it, like this gritty. Some of the roads are not kept up as well. So it just depends though on what area you're in. I've also heard that I haven't been to the Algarve area in the south of Portugal, and I've heard that that area has gotten quite expensive and is very developed now with a lot of tourism and a lot of foreigners moving there. So that has affected the prices, and it's gone up quite a bit. But once again, it just depends. And that's where I would say make sure that you visit, spend some time visiting, and try and do a trip, even if you have visited in the past. If it was a vacation, try and do a trip still that is a scouting trip, where you really look at, maybe even in one scouting trip, you have me help you plan to spend a week and a half or a week in Portugal, and then a similar amount of time in Spain. And you get to compare back to back.
Yeah. It's so true though. Like, some people are going to resonate more with Spain, and kind of with your experience, Amalia, I've always felt connected to the Spanish language. So that really helped me decide, like, I want to live in a Spanish speaking country. But Portuguese, it's so amazing, and I find it intriguing as well. But yeah, those are insights that you guys are definitely going to have to listen to our speakers and then feel it out for yourself. We do have a question that has been echoed twice. Do Spanish taxes end up negating the affordability of living there? And would you say it's ultimately more expensive than the US? How much should I be making per month? And I think this was asked by Jade and Vilma.
Yeah, that's a really great question, especially about the Spanish tax. The Spanish tax is higher here. Now, you will not be doubly taxed. I could go into all the things like how you file really ideally first in the US, then you report that to Spain, and they, tax you the difference of what what they would have charged you, just the difference. So you're not doubly taxed. But again, that's going to depend. It depends on the bracket, the tax bracket that you're in. My thought is, for the cost of living, I think it's still more affordable here, especially because of the healthcare. And that's the other thing that people bring up. The healthcare is so affordable here that ultimately, I think it's more worthwhile to pay more tax ultimately because you're living in Spain than to remain in the US. And I've even talked with a really great lady from the US that does smart women's empowerment, Katana Abbott. I love her. I'm giving a little shout out for her. But she is an amazing, like, triple certified financial advisor, planner. And she encourages people to consider living abroad to make their retirement and their income go even further. Because, it's just shown, like, time and again, it really is true that so many people are moving abroad because they want a better quality of life. And part of that is they want for their income and their retirement to go further and for a better quality. And I would say we're still witnessing that is true, even though Spain taxes more,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people get scared by these taxes, right? But they're really there for you. I mean, you get access to the public healthcare system.
Oh yeah.
Public transportation is funded by that. So it's really cheap. You don't need to have a car. So your costs are so much less in so many different areas. Groceries
Yes.
are so cheap. Like I think for a week for my husband and I in Barcelona, which is expensive, costed like 80 euro. And that was for like a whole week. And we buy all organic.
Yeah.
At Lidl, we buy organic.
I love the Lidl store too. Yes, and that's true. It goes back into just the amazing transportation and public services here. Really quick, I know I saw someone was asking about Katana Abbott and how to spell that. It's spelled with a K. Her first name is spelled with a K, K-A-T, I believe T-A-N-A, and then Abbott is with two B's. But yeah, look her up, Smart Women's Empowerment. I did some podcast with her before. Fantastic financial advisor that I would highly recommend to Katana
Oh my
Abbott.
gosh. Well, Amalia, thank you so, so much for being with us. I have Michael from Serenity who's coming on next talking about healthcare, everything healthcare. So you guys are going to definitely want to stay on for that. And guys, again, if you want to book that free call, I'm going to post it one more time. Let me scroll up and find it. But yeah, definitely you have to fill out the contact form, and I have the steps here for you to do it. So thank you so much for being with us, Amalia. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Shauna.
Awesome.